Hi guys, welcome back. Today we are going to learn how to find percentages of amounts. We've got 4 success criteria, and the first one is to understand what a percentage is. So if Joe scored 16 out of 20 in his maths test, and Amy scored 21 out of 30 in her maths test, who had the best results? So because they're both out of different amounts, it's difficult to compare these results. So to be able to compare the results, we need to turn the scores into percentages. A percentage is part of a whole, and percent means out of 100. And looking at the percentage sign, we can see that it actually is made up of the digits that make 100. So now we've completed success criteria 1, so now we're going to move on to number 2, and this is to find basic percentages of amounts. So percentage calculations that you should know. Well, 100% is the number itself. 50% is half of the number. 25% is the number divided by 4. 20% is the number divided by 5. 10% is the number divided by 10. And 1% is the number divided by 100. So if we want to find 1%, we need to divide 100% by 100. To find 10%, we divide 100% by 10. To find 20%, we can double 10%. To find 5%, we can half 10%. To find 50%, we half 100%. To find 25%, we can half 50%. To find 75%, we can times 25% by 3. And then to find a percentage like 67%, we can add up percentages that we know how to find that add up to make 67%. So for example, if I want to find these percentages of 700, to find 1% of 700, I divide it by 100. So 1% of 700 is 7. 10% of 700 is 70. 20% of 700 is 140, because I double 10%. 5% of 700 is 35, because I half 10%. 50% of 700 is 350. 25% of 700 is 175, because I half 50%. And 75% of 700 is 525, because I times 25% by 3. And if I wanted to find 58%, I can add together 50%, 5%, and 3 1%, and that will give me 406. Here's a question for you to have a go at. Pause the video, and when you're ready to mark your work, press play. Here are your answers. So 1% of 900 is 9. 10% of 900 is 90. 20% of 900 is 180. 5% of 900 is 45. 50% of 900 is 450. 25% of 900 is 225. 75% of 900 is 675. And 58% of 900 is 522. So sometimes when I'm finding percentages, my answers can be decimals as well. So 1% of 65 would be 0.65. 10% of 65 would be 6.5. 20% of 65 would be 13. 5% of 65 would be 3.25. 50% of 65 would be 32.5. 25% of 65 would be 16.25. 75% of 65 would be 48.75. And 72% of 65, I can add together 50%, 2 10%, and 2 1%. So 72% of 65 is 46.8. Here are some questions for you to have a go at. Pause the video, and when you're ready to mark your work, press play. Here are your answers. So 1% of 42 is 0.42. 10% of 42 is 4.2. 20% of 42 is 8.4. 5% of 42 is 2.1. 50% of 42 is 21. 25% of 42 is 10.5. 75% of 42 is 31.5. And 141% of 42, well, I can add together 100%, 25%, 10%, 5% and 1%. And I should get the answer 59.22. Now let's have a look at a question like this. So we want to find 30% of 500. So I can find 10% of 500, which would be 50. So 30% of 500 would be 3 lots of 10%, which is 150. If I want to find 75% of 600, well, 25% of 600 will be 150. So 75% of 600 will be 3 lots of 25%, which is 450. Here are some questions for you to have a go at. Pause the video, and when you're ready to mark your work, press play. Here are your answers. There's your green answers. There's your amber answers. There's your red answers, and there's your purple answers. The greens made Frozen, the ambers made WALL-E, the reds made Lego Movie, and the purples made Spider-Man. And now we've completed success criteria 2. So now we're going to move on to number 3, and this is to find any percentages of amounts. So if I want to find 67% of 300, I can find 50%, 10%, 5%, 1%, and another 1%, and they will all add up to 67%. So 50% of 300 is 150, 10% of 300 is 30, 5% of 300 is 15, 1% of 300 is 3, and another 1% of 300 would also be 3. So if we add all those together, 67% of 300 is 201. Another way to work out 67% of 300 is to multiply the two numbers together. So we multiply 367 together using our long multiplication method, and we get 20,100, and then we divide our answer by 100 because percent means out of 100. So my answer is 201. If I want to find 76% of 24, I can find 50%, 10%, and another 10%, a 5%, and a 1%. And if I add those together, that will give me 76% of 24. So 50% of 24 is 12, 10% of 24 is 2.4, and another one. 5% of 24 is 1.2, and 1% of 24 is 0.24. If I add those together, 76% of 24 is 18.24. To find 76% of 24 using the second method, I multiply the numbers together. So I multiply 76 and 24 together using a long multiplication method, which is 1,824. I then divide my answer by 100. So my final answer is 18.24. Here's a question for you to have a go at. Try using the first method to work out 36% of 300. Pause the video, and when you're ready to see what you should have done, press play. So to find 36% of 300, we can find 10% and 10% and 10%. A 5% and a 1%, and they add together to make 36%. So 10% of 300 is 30, so we need 3 of them. 5% of 300 is 15, and 1% of 300 is 3. So if I add those together, 36% of 300 is 108. Try answering the same question, but this time using method 2. Pause the video, and when you're ready to see what you should have done, press play. So to find 36% of 300, we multiply the numbers together, which is 10,800, and then we divide that answer by 100. So the answer is 108. We can also do this using a calculator. So to find 45% of 32 using a calculator, I can type in 45, then press Shift, then A and S to get the percentage sign, and then times by 32. If I press equals, my answer should be 14.4. On older calculators, you might need to press Shift and then the open brackets button instead of the A and S button. If your calculator doesn't have a percentage button, or you don't know where it is, you can answer this question by timesing 45 and 32 together, and then dividing the answer by 100. And you should get 14.4. Here are some questions for you to have a go at. Pause the video, and when you're ready to mark your work, press play. Here are your answers. So there's your green answers, there's your amber answers, there's your red answers, and there's your purple answers. The greens made Hulk, the ambers made Iron Man, the reds made Spider-Man, and the purples made Wolverine. And now we've completed success criteria 3. So now we're going to move on to number 4, and this is to apply to problem solving questions. Since 2017, an energy drink has reduced the sugar percentage content from 17% to 8.9%. How many millilitres less sugar is in a 330 millilitre bottle of energy drink now compared to before 2017? So to answer a question like this, we need to work out 17% of 330. So that's 56.1. 8.9% of 330 would be 29.37. So there are 26.73 millilitres less sugar compared to before 2017. Here are 2 questions for you to have a go at. Pause the video, and when you're ready to see what you should have done, press play. Here are your answers. So for the green question, if we find 16% of £45, that's 7.2. So we take it off £45, so the coat now costs £37.80. For the red question, in week 1, we find 14% of 320, which is £44.80, and we add it back onto 320. so that's £364.80. In the second week, we need to find 14% of that new amount, so that's £364.80, which is 51.072, and we need to add that on. So that's now £415.872, but money needs to have 2 decimal places, so we need to round that to £415.87. And now we've completed success criteria 4. So now that we've completed the last success criteria, it's time to end the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you found it useful. Make sure to like and subscribe, and be sure to check out the other videos on the rest of the channel. I'll see you next time. See ya.